the end of the line. I'll make you mine. Oh, peaches, 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 peaches. I love you. Ow!
Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to Art Equals Life. I am your host, JT Dubs.
And I am co-host Moose.
And I am Higgs.
Higgs of the Flicks. How y'all doing today, folks?
Oh, we're doing great. It's 9:45 p.m. and it just started thunderstorming outside.
Oh no.
Everyone's internet instantly goes out.
And we never get to record this podcast.
The whole show, like the whole series, just ends here. I just upload this this 1 minute episode as the series finale. But it's good to be here, everybody. It's good to hear everyone online. So I'm feeling a little embarrassed, y'all.
You're feeling a little embarrassed. Why's that?
Well, because we recorded the last episode and we talked about a couple of controversial figures, Kanye West, Justin Roiland, and within a few days of us recording, I'm pretty sure some news stories came out that didn't exactly change like the context of what we were talking about, but it kind of made things a little weird. So for anyone who doesn't know, Kanye West, the man who infamously came out as being a Nazi or anti-Semitic, Kanye decided to post on, I think, Instagram, or he tweeted it, I don't remember, but he said that he no longer has a problem with Jewish people because he rewatched 21 Jump Street, and I guess Jonah Hill just completely sold him on Jews again. So good on you, Jonah.
Thank you, Jonah Hill. Very cool.
I think my favorite part is
cool.
One, it was Jonah Hill is great and he's Jewish, so Jewish people are cool, but he was also like, I can't be a good Christian and hate Jewish people, and the thought never crossed his mind just not to hate a race of people just because that's a bad thing to do.
That's Kanye.
I'm going to be honest with you. The only reason why I knew anything about Kanye was because we did an episode on him. After that, I had no desire to know anything about Kanye West. So this is all new to me.
Well, Moose, we did do an entire episode basically about how you don't watch the news and how you don't pay attention to the world. So
That's very true.
In addition to Kanye no longer hating on the Jews, Justin Roiland was, I guess his charges were dismissed or cleared. I guess he was cleared of his charges for domestic violence. So we don't know exactly if he really did it, or if he just had a really good lawyer that got him out of it, or it sounds like he's still going to have a bunch of legal issues to deal with, especially given the other things that he was caught doing. So I don't think he's in the clear. I actually don't really think Adult Swim is going to hire him back unless he somehow clears his name entirely. But yeah, those are a couple of updates on our last episode that sort of make it irrelevant, but I feel like the conversation was really good, so I'm okay with it existing. So,
oh, geez, Rick, my good name has been tarnished.
Oh, geez, Rick. Oh. We're not going to put them through that for a second episode. But yeah, and then in other news, there's a writer's strike going on. What do y'all think about that?
Give them hell.
Yeah, they deserve to be paid more.
Based and bread-pilled.
Good old Jimmy Fallon's gonna have to cancel his show. Darn.
That means I don't get to hear this laugh.
Well, I hate to break it to you guys both, but Jimmy Fallon is going to be the one thing that's still going to be up and running because late night doesn't need writers. So you're actually going to get nothing but Jimmy Fallon.
No.
See, but from the article that I read, apparently SNL and all the late night, talk shows, they were going to get canceled because of it.
Oh shit, maybe so.
Like Seth Meyers was even like, yeah, I fully condone it. They deserve to be paid more. It's a shame that they put in so much time and effort and that they are not getting what they deserve.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm just saying, I don't know if you need writers for Jimmy Fallon to laugh at celebrities.
Very true.
Yeah, my thing with it is like, look, we've gotten a lot of crap from Hollywood in the last few years. It's a lot of really bad movies, a lot of really rushed projects, a lot of. I mean, my biggest critique of Hollywood over the last decade or so has really just been that, they make films a lot of times with really good special effects, really good direction, great actors, great casting. It's just like the scripts are always bad, or not always, but a lot of the times. So if this writer's strike has an effect that, like, even if right now a lot of stuff gets delayed and we don't get a lot of movies and TV shows over the next year or whatever, I'm fine with that as long as we can get like quality over quantity back. Because I'm just so tired of them just churning out every last piece of media that is just like so rushed and badly thought out. And to me, it doesn't make sense. It's like you are hiring people to write professionally, and yet we get such bad scripts. And honestly, I can't entirely blame the writers either, because I think that a lot of these films that have come out over the last couple of years that have been bad aren't always really the writer's fault. I feel like a lot of it's just that the executives just butt their heads in and force the writers to write whatever weird executive, half-assed crap that just gets thrown together.
In a very limited amount of time, too.
Yeah, they're very rushed, and they just sort of throw whatever at them, and they're like, oh, you got to include this because of this, or because we're trying to stay topical with this, or we're trying to appeal to this demographic, or, it's like, just write good stories, please.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I ask.
Yeah, here's kind of my take, is like you were absolutely right that, we'll definitely get much better quality content once this strike is over, but like, content aside, like, It's summer. Go outside. Go touch grass. You don't have to watch TV all day. Like, you can literally support the writer's strike by looking up at the sky every once in a while. Think about that.
Why would I do that when I can go on YouTube and look up a documentary about grass?
Shit, you got a point.
Why would I do that when I could just get AI to write me a movie about grass? So, speaking of computer-generated things that aren't real, but I guess are becoming real now. Very weird segue, I know. The Last of Us TV show, produced by HBO. The show is the adaptation of the Last of Us video game, and it stars Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. And I really enjoyed it, y'all. What'd you guys think of it?
I also enjoyed it. I thought it was wonderful.
Pedro Pascal is daddy.
Yes. I didn't want to say that because I'm trying to be, not so thirsty as the kids call it nowadays.
Oh, I actually got a story to tell you guys.
Okay, go ahead.
So there was like an SNL skit a while back with Pedro Pascal where they were like literally making the Pedro Pascal as daddy jokes constantly.
Oh, and where he was a college professor?
Yeah, and I kid you not, the last time me and my wife were at her parents' place, her dad kept on quoting that line, and Marissa had to finally be like, "Dad, we get it. You're attracted to Pedro Pascal."
That's amazing.
I love that.
Yeah, Pedro's pretty great. I mean, I feel like, everybody already knew him from Game of Thrones, and I feel like he kind of won everybody over in The Mandalorian, which is kind of funny because now he's not even really seemed to be all that involved in that show. But yeah, I don't know, just the formula of Pedro Pascal escorting a child to save the world. Seems to be a winning formula, so maybe we'll see it. It's Hollywood, and they're on strike right now, so they'll probably repeat this same formula over and over until we're all sick of it.
Just an endless series of Pedro Pascal harboring children.
Very true.
Yeah, but I'll say this though, so just to give everybody a little background, I've played a little bit of the game. Infamously, you can make fun of me, whatever. I don't really get that into story games too much. I don't really like stealth games all that much. So I never got super into The Last of Us. I played it for a few hours, and I liked what I played of it. I just couldn't really force myself to get through it all. But I knew some of the plot points going in, but a lot of it was unspoiled for me. So I gotta just say, as someone who doesn't really have much of a background playing that game, and I wasn't really watching for the whole like adaptation aspect of it, just as a show on its own, I gotta say, like, it really won me over very quickly. The opening sequence is heartbreaking, and it's obviously I played some of the game, so I knew about that sequence. But I loved how they did that with whole thing with his daughter, and it really on its own almost could have been its own little short film. There's a lot of moments of this show that almost could be their own little short films, as we'll get into. But just the acting was so good. Bella Ramsey was honestly the best part. I thought she was fantastic. The cinematography was amazing. The pacing was really good up until the last episode, but I'll get into the complaints later. Mostly was really well paced, and I don't know. For me, it was like really solid television, and it's kind of amazing that after so many years of video game adaptations just being so bad, that we got one that was just so damn good.
Well, they do such a good job at taking advantage of the whole television medium. Because, like, you talk about the whole bit with Joel's daughter. In the video game, it's a whole, like, maybe 10-minute sequence, and then the game basically starts.
Right.
Whereas in the show, it's the entire episode. And, like, you really get attached to this character just for them to kind of rip her away from you. And you kind of feel that same sort of attachment that her father probably feels in the situation whenever, spoiler alert for the first episode, she dies.
Yeah, they make you really care about her a lot, which is amazing given that she has almost nothing to do with the rest of the story. I mean, she's in the first 30 minutes of the first episode, and that's it. I mean, she felt like a pretty well like fleshed out character too. I mean, you kind of wanted to see her like get to live a normal childhood, a normal life, and you really, I don't know, I really enjoyed the bond between her and Joel, and I really felt like a father-daughter relationship, and it didn't feel like a couple of actors being like, "You're my daughter," and "Oh, you're my dad." Like, it was just like, no, like I believed it, and then I really felt that even though in a lot of shows they would have just like hinted at that or had like a quick like 2-minute flashback to it, like a lot of shows would have not delved into it like a 30-minute bit about the father and daughter, but I just felt like them showing that in the first 30 minutes of the show really made the relationship and dynamic between Joel and Ellie just, I don't know, I feel like it just gave it a little bit of an edge. Like, it made me feel a lot more like, at first he doesn't want to have that close bond with Ellie because he doesn't want to feel that pain again. And then by the end of the show, it's like he is like he really does sort of feel like she's his daughter in a way, and so I just thought it was, I don't know, I feel like you wouldn't have gotten that context, and you wouldn't have felt as much emotionally for Joel had you not gotten that background with him. That's just how I felt with it. What about y'all?
Yeah, like you talk about getting a greater context. I also like how they'll show you stuff that you wouldn't have gotten in the game because that wouldn't be very fun in like a video game setting. Like the whole opening scene at the very first episode where you see like these scientists talking about how funguses work, and it's like kind of just breaking down the science of it, and it felt very much like how they did Chernobyl, and the guy who directed the show also did HBO's Chernobyl, and you can definitely see a kind of parallel with how those two shows were made.
Is it just me, or was that opening of the scientists with talking about the fungus, was that not like so chilling just in the context of us in real life having to deal with COVID over the last few years?
Oh yeah, I totally thought that.
So Moose, what did you think of the show?
I love the show a lot. I thought that they adapted it very well, like the game. There was this one clip that I saw where someone had put the game next to the actual show, like the first episode, and they were very spot on with keeping the story straight, not really changing too much. I mean, and change is fine. Like, I'm not saying that I'm like against it or anything, but they were very good with, especially just kind of using that to introduce you into the show, sticking to the script with the game, um, with the show to compare it to the game. And then touching back on what you were talking about the father daughter relationship, I feel like, they drag it on through the whole show, uh, like you said, to, have Joel look like that sympathetic kind of guy. Uh, but I feel like it's more so because they want you to always try to remember that there's some sort of, I don't want to say flaw, but there's some sort of weakness. That's the same word. I literally
I
just
mean,
used
he
the
is a flawed
synonym.
character, so you're not wrong.
Yeah,
Oh, he's
so
very
it's like,
flawed.
yeah, it basically just like, I feel like the reason being they keep showing that is like he's using this as his excuse for why he's the flawed person that he is now. Grief is something really hard to go through, and it does change a person. And the way that he lost his daughter was very traumatic, and trauma can cause people to go through, a stage of like numbness and selfishness and, only picking certain people to really get attached to. They do this because they wanted to show the flaws, and then he meets Ellie, and it's like they are allowing you to see, like, with the bond, like what Joel missed with his daughter, because when his daughter died she was 10, and then with Ellie I think she's like 14 at that time in the show. So it's like he's getting to experience, basically a part of his life that he missed because of his daughter's death.
It seems like in a way he sort of like picks up where he left off, because in the first episode when we see him with his daughter, he is very
Right.
jokey and jovial and very like happy in a lot of ways, you can tell, with his daughter. And it's like, and then she dies and you don't see he's like basically in a bad mood for like the next like 7 episodes or whatever. And then you get to the end and it's like, oh, like he kind of regained some of that, but in the process of regaining that kind of love and that like familial relationship, he sort of like lost his own humanity because of some of the things he does just to get to that point. I won't really spoil it for anybody that maybe wants to go in blind, the ending, but we'll just say that, most people know the ending, that he does some pretty messed up
Right.
stuff in order to preserve that relationship. And I might just leave it at that, by saying that.
So when they introduced Ellie with Joel after, he became this selfish kind of guy, dealing with his grief for like what? I think it jumped like 20 years into the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
20, yeah. Uh,
Yeah, it jumps 20 years, and Pedro Pascal aged 5 years.
right. They wanted to try to show like Joel not wanting to give in to be that protective kind of guy, because of the fact that I feel like they wanted to portray his grief trying to not allow him to become attached, because of the fact that he didn't want to become attached and then lose that connection all over again, which is why, he did the horrible things that he did to try to preserve that relationship at the very end of season, or the season.
Yeah, he's very clearly terrified of loss because of what happened with his daughter.
Well, I mean,
And
the way he
even
lost her was
though,
so traumatic.
yeah, even though you can't always necessarily justify a lot of things he does, I do feel like on a human level, it's very empathetic and you can understand why he does what he does, which I think
Absolutely.
is really good writing, because of the fact that it's like you could take a character who outside of the context would be doing some really shitty things and would be viewed as like a pretty terrible person by an outsider. But as the viewer, you go through that journey with him emotionally. And I do feel like I don't know. I know that people are mixed on it, but I feel personally like I was on his side until the end. But then there's like a little bit of the ending where Ellie kind of starts to see that maybe he's not the greatest guy in the world. And I do feel like in that moment, you kind of realize, oh, maybe I shouldn't be pulling for him as much as I am.
I don't know. I disagree.
In what way?
I feel, because of the fact that he did what he did. So, I mean, was it selfish? Absolutely. But I mean, he wanted to allow her to live the life that she deserved. I mean, of course, he also had selfish intentions for why he did what he did. But I mean, I don't know. That's just how I feel. I'm trying my best. I mean, this show's been out for a while, but I'm also trying my best to not like do too many spoilers, I guess.
I think you do touch on something though, because like, without going into the specifics, the ending does kind of blur the lines with, where does your own, personal feelings end versus what serves,
Right or wrong,
yeah, like
morality.
well, like,
The greater
the
good for
whole,
humanity.
like, yeah, does, the needs of the few versus, the whole needs of the many. And I think the show kind of tests the limits on paternal instinct. Because like one of the big criticisms that they had with Joel in the show version versus the game is that he is way nicer than the game version because they want to
Very
kind of
true.
humanize him a bit. And then when it gets to the scene where Ellie gets kidnapped by those cannibals and he like just tortures those two guys, like he stabs a guy in the leg and he like says verbatim something that Joel says in the game where he's like, I am going to pop out your damn kneecap. And
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, this man has gone complete rage monster mode. And
Yeah,
it's
he went
like,
dad mode.
and it's like, he's going down a very dark path. And it's not necessarily that you agree, but you get it at the same time.
See, the reason why they do that, they want to pull those heartstrings. That's one of the best things about the writers, with what they did. You know, they because if it were me in Joel's position and Mama Bear mode kicked in, you bet your sweet hiney tail that I'm gonna do what I need to do in order to protect my children. You
Including Doom
know,
Humanity.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, call me selfish, but
No, I mean I get it though. Like I mean, well, I don't get it because I don't have kids, but when I watched the show, I empathized with him more, honestly.
Yeah, because like you don't have to agree with somebody to empathize with them.
see, it's really hard to think that way when you're not a parent, but when you are a parent, that's why I say I disagree and I can see it from Joel's side because it's like he basically regained a new daughter. And it's like he's like, "Why in the world would I sacrifice her when I just got her back?"
Yeah, like he straight up calls her baby girl at one point.
Oh, I cried at that. I cried my eyes out. I cried my eyes out. I cried my eyes out at that.
I think too though, like even just taking away the parent aspect of it too, like I don't know, like I saw in some of that like maybe how I would feel about like my sister or maybe Higgs, how you might feel about one of someone in your
Your
family. Like
wife.
yeah, exactly. Like I feel like everybody has like somebody in their life that they would potentially maybe do
Do humanity
for.
for. Yeah,
Yeah, so
exactly.
I think anybody could empathize with it though. I think parents would probably just empathize maybe a little harder because that bond with your child is maybe a little different than the bond you have with other family members. But I still think anybody who has a family member they care about, I guess, would feel that way.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
both of my sisters have children, and like, I'm not a father, but I also do kind of feel that a little bit.
I mean, you're their uncle.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you already have that like sense of protection mode.
Mm-hmm. Like, like one of my nieces, she doesn't have a dad, and so I,
You're like, that's me.
yeah, Yeah, like if like I'm not trying to like, smell my own farts, but like if like her but like if her school like ever did a father-daughter dance, like you bet your sweet ass that I'm gonna be like lining up like I volunteer as tribute.
See, that makes me want to cry. I respect that.
If Higgs's niece is listening to this podcast, just know if father daughter dance is happening for you, I think you gotta bring Higgs.
Off topic, but my dad never did that for me. I never got to experience dad daughter dance.
No. I will take you to the father-daughter dance, Lauren.
Aww.
Thanks. Thanks, Higgs.
Just call me daddy.
So before we move on, I did want to bring up my only real criticism of the show, and Higgs, I know you agree with me because I think we've talked about this. Moose, I don't know about you, but did anyone else feel like the last episode was really rushed? And again, I didn't play the whole game, so maybe that's just how it is in the game. But I felt like that plot you really could have done in 2 episodes or an hour and a half or even like an hour. It's like the shortest episode. And I loved all the stuff they did with the characters, and the character development was great. But I do feel like, man, if they had, like, I don't know, added 20 minutes, 30 minutes, really fleshed out the conflict more for Joel, I don't know. I feel like that episode would have been a masterpiece if they had given it more of the time it deserved. But again, that's just me as someone who didn't play the game. So
Yeah, so here's what I will say, like as someone who has like played both The Last of Us 1 and 2, is that, like the most of the show does a good job at kind of being its own thing. But with the very last episode, they basically do a carbon copy of how the game works, like kind of to a fault, because they don't add much of their own stuff to it. Like what you see at the very last episode is exactly what you see in the game. But the problem is there's like, even though like the biggest like plot points in that story happen at the very last part, it's a very small fraction of what you get in the game, because most of it is just like this full-on shootout at the hospital, and it's like very, just tons and tons of cannon fodder coming at you. It's very video gamey, but that's not very realistic in a television setting, and so they just kind of cut it out, and like you said, it feels rushed.
yeah, I mean, I even think though they could have added some scenes though between Joel and Ellie and some of the other characters that were at play in that episode. I just felt like you could have developed the conflict a little bit more.
Oh, and they absolutely should have.
I think the climax was paced fine. I just don't think that what led to the climax was paced well at all. It's just like, we see a giraffe. Oh, now we've been kidnapped. Oh, okay, Joel, you got to make a choice really fast. And it was like, it just threw me into that conflict a little too fast. And it's like, I really wanted to savor that choice that he had to make. I wanted to savor that heartbreak again, and the choice and the pain he had to go through to make that choice. And I just feel like they just rushed that whole. It's like the climax, like I said, I think was well paced, but I think they just threw you into the climax. It was like, okay, let me explain it like this from a storytelling perspective. It was like you had the inciting incident, and then the climax was right after, and there's no middle chunk to that story to make it more compelling. And that is my critique of it.
Oh no, absolutely. I wasn't saying I agree with it. I was just explaining why it went down.
Yeah, but I think they should have known better, because the rest of the show didn't follow the game like beat for beat. I mean, they had a whole episode in like episode 3 that basically was its own like short film in the middle of the series.
Oh yeah, I don't want to give off the impression that I was like trying to excuse it.
No, I don't think you were. I was just explaining my point a little bit more effectively, I guess, as someone who didn't play the game. But overall, though, I really enjoyed the show. That was just a small critique of it from the last episode. But overall, really loved it. And, I would recommend it to anybody who hasn't checked it out yet. It's top tier television and probably the best show I've watched in 2023. So yeah, we're about to go to commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Stan Work.
Greetings. You already know who I am. Stan Work. I am here to present the latest in euphony technology. The Euphony 15 Max. It's new. It's big. It's got 5 cameras. This can be yours for the small price of $2,500. Now, we also threw in the new Airbuds. But unlike the dog, they don't play basketball.
5 cameras? What, are we filming Avatar? And what about the memory storage? ABOT has up to 2 terabytes of storage. And I can't use a charger for anything else? The ABOT charger is universal. Why is it all sold separately? It's far superior to this crappy euphony. You just don't understand how to use it because your simple mind can't comprehend its advanced technological capabilities.
Would you just shut up? You're being hella cringe.
It has 5 cameras. What more could you possibly want? If you're broke, just say that.
Why would I spend that much money on a phone that's the same as the last 4 you've made? And why are you wearing that stupid turtleneck? It's 95 degrees outside, Mr. Stan.
Look over here! We've made an app where you can exclusively message other euphony users to shame the poor little ABOT users with their pathetic green text bubbles.
Oh my god, I need it.
Yeah, I hate poor people. The Euphony 15 Max. It's the same as the rest of them, but we'll never admit that. It's me, Mario, and we're back from a commercial break. 2023 is like the year of the video game adaptation because right after The Last of Us finished, we got a little movie by this independent animation studio. I don't know if you've heard of them, Illumination. They've done a couple small little animated shorts, but they blessed us.
They made
with,
Shrek, right?
Yeah, something like that. They made Cars 4, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they made a film based on a video game series that I think a few people might know about. Little indie game, Super Mario Brothers. But yeah, they made the Super Mario Brothers movie. It came out as of recording about a month ago, and it's currently made so much money at the box office. I think it might end up beating Frozen 2 as the most the highest grossing animated film of all time. So yeah, what did you guys think of the Super Mario Brothers movie?
I liked it a lot.
Sorry, Moose was making a really funny face in the camera, and I kind of just got distracted. Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Higgs, what did you think of my movie?
Oh, it was a good time.
Such a good time.
Do I have my complaints about it? Yeah, but as a piece of entertainment goes, it was a damn good time.
I love how they started off the movie with the accents, and then they were like, "You think that was too much?"
Yeah. So it's here's the thing about Mario. It's basically the polar opposite of The Last of Us, because The Last of Us is a video game that is most known for having a really good story, and Mario is a video game that is most known for not having really any story. And somehow they both had adaptations that came out back to back that were super successful, and a lot of people pretty much felt like they were very true to the source material.
Absolutely.
So for me personally, it's no secret to anybody, I'm a pretty big Nintendo fan. And I loved what they did with the movie. It was basically the Mario movie that I think I always wanted for the most part, because the original 1993 Mario movie was such hot garbage and so untrue to the whole Mario world. This movie really does nail it. From the animation style to all the references to the games. I feel like for the most part, they got all the characters down. I mean, there is a little bit of an issue with the characters are all voiced by like really well-known celebrities who more or less kind of just feel like they're playing themselves. But I feel like, I don't know, for me at least personally, getting the references, getting to see the world, getting to feel immersed in the Mario world, even if the voice acting was a little bit distracting at times, I don't take the story very seriously, so I'm fine with the actors just being goofy caricatures of themselves, as long as they're still trying to play the character to some degree.
And they did great.
Yeah, like I will say, like even if you could tell, like, oh shit, that's Charlie Day or that's Seth Rogen, they also fit the vibe of their characters, so it was still pretty easy to swallow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and they were all really funny for the most part, and they just really brought a lot of energy to the film. And I mean, it really felt like the type of movie that was made, one, for like people like me that are just like man children that still play Nintendo games, and also I guess like kids, which are I guess like the two main demographics they were looking for. So I think they just kind of nailed it. I mean, they really nailed what people were wanting. And it's funny because, you know, critics have really torn the movie apart. It got like pretty bad Rotten Tomatoes scores early on, and I think it's still sitting at what, like a 50 or 60%. Like, it's not great. But
it's in the 50 range, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, to the critics, I think it's fair to criticize it because, yeah, it's Mario. The story is not great. The characters are not one-dimensional, but like pretty two-dimensional, I guess you could say. You know, they brought a lot of heart to it, but they didn't really flesh out the characters too much. And, you know, some of the pacing, they kind of rushed through a lot of like what could be good character development, I guess. But again, it's based on a platformer video game that has basically no story for the most part. And the main things people wanted to see, they touched on. My only thing is with the story is I was fine with what they did with it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. If you want this to be a successful franchise, though, and not just a one-hit wonder, I do think they need to maybe flesh out the stories a little bit better with future movies, because they do sound like they want to make this a franchise. And I'm cool with that. I would definitely keep seeing these movies, but if you give them really, really shallow stories, and if they were to say like get worse than this story-wise, I could see myself losing interest like after a couple more of them. And I don't think it would it wouldn't be like the next Marvel if they don't try to at least like improve upon the stories that they've done.
As an adult, I can completely understand where you're coming from. But see, here's the thing. You got to think. Yes, this was, you know, for us man and women children. But like you said, this is also for actual children in itself. So I feel like the amount of story and character development that they put into the movie for each character was perfect. Because, you know, children aren't going to really, you know, appreciate the long length of lore like we do as adult children. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I actually got a story to tell you.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so whenever I went to go see it, I'm pretty sure it was opening weekend, and it was like a Saturday afternoon. So you know, like school's out, and the place was packed to the brim with children. And it's like, as you know, a self-described man-child, you know, at first I was like, ugh, these kids, get out of here. But like there was something really touching about seeing, you know, these children, you know, cheer on this character who I've loved since I was like 6 years old. Like, have you guys ever seen the movie Finding Neverland?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, and for anybody who's never seen it, you know, it's about the guy who wrote the play for Peter Pan. Well, anyways, there's a scene where they are putting on a show, like, for the people of London, and they essentially hire a bunch of kids from the orphanage to sit in the front row, because otherwise it was just going to be a bunch of stuffy old aristocrats watching what is essentially a children's play. And so it's like the children are laughing and having a good time watching this play made for children because children's media, wasn't a concept at the time.
Right.
And because the children were having such a good time, the stuffy adults were also having a good time. And so while the movie in and of itself is very kind of shallow because it's an adaptation of a character who doesn't have a personality in and of itself. Mario is not Mario. Mario is the player. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Wait, you mean wahoo isn't a personality?
And so because it was, a kind of Illumination Minions level of stuff, that being said, this is the best Illumination Studios movie that's come out hands down. But I think
the bar was very low.
They played to its audience very well. Like the man children were able to appreciate like oh, remember Odyssey? But like also the children were able to just enjoy the cartoon antics.
What do you think was y'all's favorite reference in the movie?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mario Kart, Rainbow Road, dude.
What about you, Higgs?
Oh god, there's so many. I think my favorite is the fact that they included Cranky Kong in the Donkey Kong sequence.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. So my favorite reference in the movie, and it's a little obscure. I mean, not that obscure, but it's definitely more obscure than probably the ones you guys mentioned. So there's very early part of the movie where Mario and Luigi have a plumbing business in Brooklyn, and they do a little commercial, little jingle for their plumbing business, and
I love
that. They do this plumber rap, and the Super Mario Brothers plumber rap, and so the thing is about that is that song was the theme song for the Super Mario Brothers Super Show that came out
I recognized
yeah,
it.
That show came out in it was a cartoon. It came out in the late 80s, early 90s, and it had Captain Lou Albano in it. Really weird, kind of goofy show. But I was a huge fan of it as a kid because funny story, my cousin was really into Mario, but he was 5 or 6 years older than me. So he had the Super Show, he was watching the Super Show as it was coming out. And so he had those episodes recorded onto a VHS tape. And when I got really into Mario, when I was a little kid, they gave my aunt and my cousin gave me his VHS tape with all the a bunch of the episodes on it, and I used to watch it all the time. So it was a very nostalgic show for me. So just seeing them do that reference of that song at the very beginning was just such a cool reference. I hate that it was spoiled in one of the trailers, and I hate that. I feel like I would have enjoyed that a lot more had it been just something I experienced in the movie instead of in a trailer. But it was a really cool, just deep cut reference. And then what's even more deep cut about it is the woman that they're helping at the beginning with her sink or whatever that's in the commercial. She's voiced by the same voice actress who played Princess Peach in the TV show from 30 years ago or whatever. So just really cool, deep cut references throughout all of it. It really did feel like a movie that was made by the people that make the games. Cause I mean, Nintendo did produce the movie, and Shigeru Miyamoto had a pretty big role in, telling them kind of what he envisioned the movie being, and was very he wanted to keep the movie very true to his vision, because basically, for anyone that doesn't know, Nintendo, after the original Mario movie came out 30 years ago, and it was so bad, they basically were against movie adaptations of their games from that point onwards. And it was only when Miyamoto started having conversations with Illumination that he was like, okay, we can do this, but we got to do it my way. And he made sure that they kept it true to his vision and true to his characters or whatever. And it even sort of incorporates a lot of elements of the games that he designed back in the day. And so I just thought it was really cool how much Miyamoto was involved and how much he made sure that it stuck to that vision. It's also probably a reason why the story isn't anything too amazing, because Miyamoto infamously hates putting story in his games. But overall, though, I really think that having that personal touch, having the original creator involved, I feel like meant a lot to the fans. And so I really appreciate that they made something for the fans. Yeah, it's not for everybody, and I can admit that easily. It's really not made for everybody. If you're not a fan or you're not a little kid, you're probably not going to get much out of it. But at the very least, I mean, it's a fun little trippy adventure to watch with some cool animation. You know, for a long time, people really didn't seem to think that you could do an adaptation of a video game. And now we're kind of being proved wrong, I guess, about that. And so I guess my question for y'all to sort of end the episode is, what do y'all think is like really crucial to not just a video game adaptation, but like what do you feel like is really necessary for a piece of media to do as an adaptation in order to really really work as an adaptation from another source material?
Know your medium.
Exactly. It's okay to like, you know, explore and add some new things, but when it comes to that stuff, I'm very like stick to the script kind of gal. You know, throw in some improv here and there, throw in some new stuff here and there. That's perfectly fine. But if you change it too much, then it's just gonna suck.
Ooh, that's kind of the opposite of what I was going for.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because like what I meant by knowing your medium is kind of know the difference between being a movie and being, you know, a video game. Like, you know, think about The Last of Us, you know, like, you know, that, you know, think about the third episode with Ron Swanson. You know, that doesn't stick to the script.
But it was
by
damn
any
good.
means.
Very true.
Exactly.
Very true.
Because it knew that it was a television show and they can't just straight up have everything that you see in the video game because that would be boring as hell.
No, okay, I get it. That's very true.
I feel like for me, what it really comes down to is the balancing act. And so can you balance the new and the old and make it overall good? So for instance, like Super Mario Brothers, they took what people liked from the games. People love the world, the characters, the sound effects, like that whole vibe of Mario and Nintendo. And gameplay elements they sort of threw in a little bit into the story. So they took what people loved about it, but then they said, okay, like we have to also make this a movie. So they took what worked in Mario and they adapted it into, you know, what is essentially like a 90-minute children's film. And I think that's mostly what people had been wanting, you know, in a Mario movie. And so it just worked out really well for them. Similarly with The Last of Us, they were like, okay, let's take some what's old and works and what's new. And what they knew worked was they knew the story was good, they knew the characters were good, but they were like, well, let's take those story and characters, but like let's make it like let's take what people like about those characters in that story and let's make it work in the medium of television instead of the medium of video games. And like I said, the episode that felt the worst was the one that stuck more to the game than it did, you know, being its own TV show, that kind of thing. So I really think it's the balancing act at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Woo!
So I guess know your medium, but also know your source material. Like you gotta do both.
And know your audience. I mean, because while you shouldn't just try to pander endlessly to the audience, it's fine to challenge them some. But, you know, I would just say, like, some of the extra little things they did in The Last of Us, like the Ron Swanson episode, like that was something they added in, but it sort of challenged the audience in a way because it wasn't from the game, but it did fit within the story. It did fit within a lot of the themes of the show. And, you know, but then it wasn't like they changed the whole show to be about Ron Swanson. They changed just one episode and then they kind of went back to the script.
I like how y'all are calling him Ron Swanson when his name is Nick Offerman.
No, Lauren, he's Ron Swanson. Get it right.
He will always be Ron Swanson.
There is something that I do want to add to you saying, you know your audience and how, you know, The Last of Us, you know, does certain things that challenges the audience. And that makes sense because the audience of The Last of Us, that's going to be an adult audience. You know, the game is rated M. And so you're allowed to challenge the audience. Whereas for Mario, you know, you can be, you know, 9 or 99 and appreciate Mario. And so because your demographic is going to be mostly children, that's not really the place you want to challenge them.
Exactly.
For sure. And they're very different adaptations. And I think what's cool about both of these compared to each other is that this sort of shows us like, yes, there are commonalities of like what makes a good adaptation, but there is no like perfect formula yet because they're still kind of figuring out how to adapt video games into movies and TV shows. And so for that reason, I think it's a good sort of case study in a way of like, you know, we all can have our theories as to why they both work, but there is no true answer yet as to like the winning formula for how you adapt a video game into a movie. Because I mean, you look at something like you know, the Marvel movies or whatever, like that is they figured out like pretty quickly in like the late 2000s, maybe some with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, but maybe some with Christopher Nolan's Batman, but they figured out at a certain point like how to adapt comics into movies really well. And it seems like they just didn't try to do that very well for video games for a very long time. And it just seems like now that comic book movies are sort of, you know, people are getting tired of them. They're getting fatigued by them, you know, but now they're like, okay, well, what other medium can we take and adapt into that format? And I mean, it's video games now. So they're sort of pioneering that right now. And we're seeing the beginnings of how video game movies and TV shows are being pioneered. Not that they didn't exist in the past. I mean, there's some good adaptations in the past, but the fact that there are two that are this high level and this highly praised within, you know, the same couple months.
You know, Hollywood producers are like wiping a bead of sweat away as people are getting comic book fatigue. Like, oh, good, we don't have to come up with anything new. We can just mine video games now.
Yeah, they'll always find something else to rip off. Well, thank you everybody for listening. This has been another episode of Art Equals Life. I'm your host, JT Dubs. That's Moose. That's Higgs. And everybody have a wonderful, wonderful day, evening, afternoon, whenever you're listening. And if you're on YouTube, go give us a little subscribe.
A little
or
sub.
Spotify. If you're listening there, give us a little follow. And yeah, go check out Super Mario Brothers and The Last of Us. They're pretty great. So
It was great.
Tight.
peace out, everybody.
Woo!